welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to do a little extra video here. I'm going to try and make it quite quick, but give you an in-depth sort of tutorial on how to make these little vases or pots. Now this one isn't quite finished yet. I will insert a picture at the start of what they look like finished. This is after one coat, and I'm going to do another coat on these today. But I'm going to show you sort of the stages of how I'm going to do it. But if you'd like to see how to make some beautiful neutral looking vases and little makeup brush holders, then just carry on watching. So you might have seen in my Poundland haul, I picked up these candle holders and this little vase. So these are the ones I'm going to be showing you how to use today. So these were all 50p and they were from Poundland, but you can use any vases. I use wine bottles that we had lounging around the house. First, if you've got to decide what colour you want to do, I'm going to start off with a white base and then add in a little bit of gold, a little bit of this copper red metallic paint that was in my Poundland haul, some maybe a little bit of red and a yellow. So I'll mix it all up for you. So hopefully you can see this is my plant pots. This is just an old ready meal container that I'm using to mix it up. So this is my paint. So this is the red colours I've already mixed. This is the colour I want to use, which is really important to mix the colours before. Now in the video I watched, she used baking soda and that worked amazing and it was a lot less gritty. I didn't have any, so I'm using bicarbonate of soda, which I tried last night and does work, but it does leave a much harsher grit. So this time when I'm doing it, I'm actually going to use a lot less, because last time I put about half and half and it was very, very gritty. Obviously you can build it up. And if you want to do like little swatches on, whatever you're painting over, then that can give you a bit of an idea of how gritty you'd like it. But I just keep adding it in until I've got sort of my desired texture. I am just mixing it in with the brush I'm using, which is the foam brush. These are just from Poundland, I believe. So as you can see, that's quite a fine grit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my pot that I'm going to use and just go over it, sort of see how I like the look of that. So that's a really fine grit, which I do quite like, so I'm probably going to keep it like that. This one I reckon might need a couple more coats. Obviously with the grit it seems to kind of soak up some of the paint. You don't need as many coats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the labels off these and paint all these. So I've done one of the candlesticks holder from Poundland, and as you can see it's really streaky. I do find that different things sort of hold the paint differently. So I think because this paint's slightly watery, oh, I've just put my hand in that. As this paint's kind of watery from the last that I did, I am actually for the last one just going to add a tiny bit more of bicarb in it just to thicken up the paint a little bit. So I've put about that much in. I'm going to just mix it in. This will just slightly make it more gritty, and I'm hoping that might add to the coverage a little bit. I think it's just where I've mixed lots more paints in it. In my last that I did, I had a base of white, and our white paint's really thick, whereas in this one I've used more of the other colours, which are actually quite runny. So probably the thicker the paint the better really. It doesn't matter, it just means I probably need to use a couple of coats on this. I'm going to try and put cling film over the paint and hope that that sort of stops it from drying up too much, and then I'll come back in sort of an hour or so and hopefully it'll be dry enough to put another coat on there. I just don't want to waste all this paint. So I'm just going to cover all this. It's got one nice even coat. If you do the coats thicker, they still probably won't dry. So I'd say maybe just do a couple of thinner coats, just be patient. Maybe don't mix up quite as much paint as I did, and that'll probably be fine. So this is what it will look like after one coat. The bottles I did last night, the coats actually after one, as you saw from the bottles, actually don't look too bad. So it just is trial and error, but the more coats you do, obviously the better. So I'm going to put these ones to dry. So for the second coat on the bottle, I've just mixed up some paint without any of the bicarb in it, and I'm just going to paint over. This is just to add another layer where you can sort of still see, if you can see the sort of brush strokes, and you sort of see the bottle underneath. This is also good if you do want to alter the colour slightly, and you can just paint over. I am using a foam brush for this. I find it gets into all the grooves and it's really nice and easy to distribute a really even layer of paint. So I'm just going to paint all of these all over. So after you've painted over, it should look a little bit like this. So the colour is just more even all over. You can't really see the brush strokes through it, and it just looks super even. So I'm going to leave this one to dry. What I am going to do is I'm going to alter the paint slightly, so add in sort of more red, more yellow, more gold, more copper, sort of as I go. Just the bottles are all slightly different colours. You can also use darker colours for this if you want to. So it's a really good way of, at this stage, sort of mixing out what the colours look like. Also, I would let these dry for about 24 hours before you start touching them. So preferably do it somewhere where you don't have to move them. I will have to move these as I'm having people over tonight because we need a table, but try and do it somewhere where you don't have to move it and just leave it to dry in the position. So I didn't just do wine bottles, I also did jars. So I've done this jar, which was glass, and this is just an old jar, probably with sauce in it or something. And this is an old tin plant pot. I would say the tin seems to be more streaky. I don't know if this is the one I just did first, so maybe the paint hadn't sort of combined as much, but I'd say this one is the most streaky. So I'm going to go over all of them ones with the second coat of paint, mixing up the paint slightly as I'm doing it, and keeping some the same, some different, just to have some variations in the colour, and then I'll get back to you. So for the last two bottles and the last tin, I've just added some slightly more gold and copper paint, just so it's a little bit more orangey. I really like the colour that these ones turned out last night, and I can't seem to make it match completely. The ones I've just done are a bit more pinky and a bit more neutral, so I do want to kind of get this sort of deeper orange colour. So I might actually just add in a tiny bit more copper colour, just because I do want it to be less pinky and more neutral. To go with the prints I've got in my room at the moment. I'm also going to add in some of this gold. So the paints you use, as long as they're acrylic paint, they're fine in terms of just paint you sort of get in Poundland. But equally, I've seen people use this for sort of wall paint, furniture paint, anything really. Also, I've seen them use chalkboard paint. So I'm just mixing that in, and I'm going to give these last couple ones that I did last night and their second coat. So for the second coat, I'm not adding any grit. As I mentioned, I'm just using the paint. This is actually a bit runnier, which is actually quite good. It's going through all of the grooves and the cracks in the grit and sort of seamlessly going all over it, which is really nice. So it's sort of just not smoothing out the texture. If anything, it's emphasising the texture, as it's all one colour. It's all super smooth and it looks like that, and then that's half and half, so you can see sort of what it's like before and after the second coat. So I would say 2 coats is probably best for this. If you can get a really nice opaque paint that will cover up on the first time, then that would be perfect, but it really doesn't matter. As I say, I've left mine overnight and now just going over them and giving it one seamless coat. Now you could hairspray over this to lock in the paint. I'm personally just going to leave it. It's not going to be something that's going to be touched a lot, so it will just be up on a shelf. So I'm not going to seal this at all, but if you're going to put it in somewhere where it's going to be moved around a lot, then I maybe would seal it in with some PVA glue, some Mod Podge if you're in America. Yeah, also one thing I have noticed is going over for a second coat where this paint is a little bit runnier. I am going over and sort of scraping off the excess paint, and the ones I've just set over there to dry, they've actually started to drip a little bit. I just want to get rid of them drip marks so they look more like a rough pottery or ceramic. I'm actually leaving the stems till last as well of the wine bottles, just because then they're easier to grab and turn around, rather than painting the whole of them and then not getting anywhere to grip. I would say, obviously, if you're painting them in somewhere you can leave them, you don't have to pick them up, whereas I'm getting very messy. Definitely wear old clothes for this, and definitely if you're worried about getting paint on your hands, wear gloves. I'm just going to have a massive shower and get rid of all the paint. The other day when I did this, it was all up my arms, it was everywhere, but now I'm really happy with that colour. I think it's super neutral. It's not too warm, or it's not too pink, which is what I wanted, so I like that a lot. So I'm going to go over the other 2 things I've got left. So one more wine bottle and then one plant pot. So as you can tell from the bottom of this pot, I've actually already spray painted this before. This is a silver pot from Ikea. It's one of the pound ones. And I'd already actually copper spray painted it, but that doesn't go with my theme anymore, and that's why I'm changing it. I do find buying little pots like this from either Poundland, Ikea, the charity shop is great, and you can just decorate them as they're not too treated. This was just tin. You can really decorate them however you want. Obviously for certain materials you probably would need to prime them, but I literally just paint right over them. I do sometimes sand when I'm upcycling just so everything's a little bit smoother. But as you can see, that's coated that really nicely. And again, you've got the sort of texture on it, which I really, really like. And I just think it adds a little something to it. I'm going to paint the bottom now. I've just done that. But yeah, no, super nice. This probably will stick to the paper now I've done that. I did do the inside on this last night, just because the inside was a little bit dirty where I had a plant in it. And the staining wouldn't come off where I'd had the plant in it. And the gravel was in there. So yeah, so I really like this plant pot. It looks so much more natural. Something you'd find at sort of the garden centre. But as I say, yes, I had already spray painted this and it's gone on fine and dried overnight fine over the spray paint. I am finding doing this second coat, as I mentioned before, that is quite a lot of drips, especially on this one. So I am going over and sort of wiping off all the excess. You don't actually need too much paint. It's to be surprising how far the paint goes in this project. So you don't need too much. So that one's done. I would say if you do want to get the orangey terracotta colour, I'm finding it really hard to make out the reds, the yellows, the coppers. So I would get an orange and then dilute it maybe with some white, maybe add in some red for the deeper tones. You do just have to play around with the colours. I mean, I've mixed up so much paint here that I've got a lot of extra paint. So I'm going to have to find some more stuff to use it for. So I am just going to go over this one, which is my final one I need to recoat. So I did think I mentioned in one of my last videos, if you saw my Poundland and charity shop, come and shop with me. I don't know if I did mention it, but I got some foliage in that video that I'm going to pop in these wine bottles, but I'm also going to use some pampas grass, which I'm going to buy, which I love. I've seen it in, it was, I believe it was Gemma Louise Miles' video, although now I'm saying that no, it was Amy Rose Walker on YouTube, and she bought some pampas grass off of Amazon, and it looks so lovely. Although it is quite expensive, but I have seen some on Etsy. If you don't know what it is, you'll see it in my home tour, because I'm going to get some, or sorry, my room tour, and pop it in these little makeshift vases. So the wine bottles were just wine that my mum had drunk, and I just told her to save any nice bottles. So yes, that's this one done. So now I'm going to do the other one. So another technique I did for the second coat is I used spray paint, which I got in my previous Poundland my Poundland haul. So that was an antique white spray paint. Unfortunately, I did it and then put it outside and it started to rain. And I didn't realise until afterwards that it was raining. So I quickly brought that in. So hopefully that will be saved enough and I'll be able to show you that in the final result as well. But the white, when I first sprayed it on, was really bright. However, it has gone more of a creamy colour. And I don't know if that's because of underneath the creamy base we had underneath. So I'm unsure whether the colour is super white. I haven't tested out on completely white furniture, so I wouldn't be able to say, but it is a really lovely colour. So I'm really enjoying that. And the final thing is my top tips. So use the baking soda is probably my top tip. I haven't used it myself. I've only used bicarb, and it is super gritty and less smooth. Obviously that is what we're going for, and that's the same effect you'll get with baking soda, but I do believe it's just kind of finer. And the lady who I saw do this, which is on YouTube, which I'll link below, she used baking soda and tested out loads of different techniques, and that was definitely her favourite. So that's definitely something to remember, and definitely do it where you're going to be able to leave them overnight for a couple of days if you need to let them dry. But apart from that, I hope that's all cleared up. If I do have to film anything else, I'll have to do that when I'm doing the final clip where I show you all around. But if you did like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and like if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.